Some games just look interesting. I watched just 3 seconds of footage and I'm thinking, hold on, what is this? So many games out there are beautiful and technically accomplished, but they're not visually interesting. They don't arrest me, they don't light me up or spark my curiosity. Don't get me wrong, I like a lot of these games. But I've been wondering, what is it about some games that makes them so striking? There's a quality that some games have to me, a special sauce, an it factor, that makes a game world not just technically impressive, but actually interesting. I want to look at 3 very different looking games that have something in common. They all use the same design philosophy, which I will call aesthetic contrast, to achieve the goal of having an interesting world. Basically, they take 2 opposing aesthetics and smash them together. Final Fantasy XV takes this approach. It juxtaposes the mundane with the magical. It's a world in which one minute you can be broken down on the side of the road looking for a repair shop, and the next you can be communing with a god of lightning. It's a world where you can find a classic Americana-style diner, and also fly over that diner in your royal car jet. The wildlife follows this design philosophy too. Exploring around a pond hunting for very average swamp frogs is so much more fun when a gigantic mythical creature is grazing in the background. Even the land speaks of 2 worlds. Driving past epic and impossible geology while still making sure to stay on the right side of the road. Or driving over a standard, modern-looking bridge, but overlooking a yawning fissure that reveals bone-like crystals deep in the ground. On paper, this is a jarring difference, but it's the clash of the 2 styles that makes them both more interesting. A classic roadside motel would be unremarkable in a game world that looked completely like ours. But in a world of monsters and queens and gods, the motel stands out. It makes me ask questions instead of just driving by. Quaint places like this also feel more comforting and nostalgic, knowing what kind of grandeur and danger the world otherwise has to offer. The style of our main characters, too, are made so unique in this game because of this design philosophy. There's something so iconic about wearing fantastical royal garments in pedestrian places. Or oppositely, wearing jeans and a sporty windbreaker that would fit in just fine in our world, while summoning ancient weapons from thin air in a glassy flourish. Because of this design, it would be hard to mistake a screenshot of this game for any other. The realistic weather patterns and clear night skies support another integral mechanic the game has to offer: camping. You can camp out under the stars with your traveling partners, and even choose which meal to eat. And then you can watch them sit around that warm campfire and share jokes and annoy each other. These are such human moments and are so welcome after a day of magical battles and dramatic story beats. After indulging in the comfy mundane for a while, you start to crave the epicness and grand scale. And after all the grandeur, you begin to crave the mundane. It's a subtle rhythm the game employs where you're always ready to enjoy the other half of the game's style, ensuring that neither of them wear out their welcome. And as an added benefit, you never become desensitized to the big magical things, like you might in a pure fantasy game. Things like this leave an impression throughout the whole game. Importantly, smushing 2 opposing styles together like this also forces the developers to flesh out the world in a way they might not have if there was just one dedicated style. What does it mean for the people of this world if they have magical crystals, giant monsters, and living gods? It means that some of the creatures are domesticated and ranched. It means that the main roads might pass by ancient tombs. It means that the cities are powered by naturally forming crystal energy. If you're doing any kind of world building, you should consider this kind of approach, because it forces you to take less for granted and flesh out your world in more memorable ways. In Final Fantasy XV, this approach results in a game world that is not only visually distinct, but also a joy to explore and learn more about.
Walk tall, my son.
Of equally strong contrast is a game called Control. Control has one of the most accomplished and unique styles of any game I've ever played. It's a big, sprawling game that takes place entirely in a single building. How can that be fun, you might say? But this isn't just any building. This is the oldest house, a monolithic tower in the middle of New York City that only reveals itself to those who are looking for it. It's a building whose inside is bigger than its outside. It's a shifting, breathing building that operates under its own mysterious, unknowable rules. And yet, people work here. There's a rigid bureaucratic structure with very familiar-looking offices and cubicles and potted plants. You've probably worked in a place that looks like this. But you've never worked in a place that looks like this. And these two places are just a few corners away from each other. The organization that works in the oldest house is the Federal Bureau of Control, or the FBC for short. The purpose of the Bureau is to investigate strange, unexplainable occurrences across the US. The world of Control is one in which all manner of extra-dimensional and paranormal activities going on, and the Bureau works to contain or explain as much of it as they can. You play as Jesse Faden, and you are led to this building by a voice in your head. When you enter, you can see the portraits of the director of the FBC. Who painted this portrait? Are we going to meet this director? And how on earth does someone even become the director in a building like this? You soon learn the answers to all these questions. After making your way through the seemingly abandoned building, you find the director's office, and you find the director, dead. Next to him is an object of power, the first of many you will encounter. They call it the service weapon, and it will only obey the person it deems fit to be the director.
Objects of power can cause or be results of AWE's altered world events, intrusions upon the perceived reality. Now, the service weapon is, of course, a prime example of an OOP, a very powerful one. Ingrained in the Bureau's DNA, a key component in our prime candidate program. Come out of that Russian roulette a winner and you're it.
Evidently, this man very recently stopped being deemed fit. The moment you pick up the weapon, it conforms to you, and you become the new director of the Federal Bureau of Control. No company-wide memo is needed to notify the change in leadership, with the portraits around the building doing just what they did when you came in, faithfully depicting the current director. The office building, if it can be called that, is aware of you. This is just the start of how the game begins to characterize the oldest house as a sentient entity with knowledge and preferences and power all its own. The people here discovered this building in 1964, but the building seems to be ancient. And the building has allowed them to use it for reasons we can only imagine. This is what makes the setting of this game so creative. Every corner is mysterious and eerie when you know you're walking through a shifting place. It feels like you're taking a tour through the mouth of a dragon, and you're just lucky every second it doesn't decide to swallow you. The story explains that they use 60s era technology because the oldest house doesn't take kindly to modern technology. This gives the developers a great excuse to populate the game with Cold War-era hardwood and leather furniture, clothing, and pre-internet communication technology. The kind of stuff that makes you feel nostalgic for a time when product manufacturing had a higher quality standard. The warmth of these aspects of the building are in stark contrast to much of the building's architecture. The cold concrete features, illuminated by even colder white lighting, the alien forms that concrete can take. It starts to become obvious what aspects of the building are inherent to its personality versus what aspects the humans have added for their own comfort and sanity. The building is austere and unknowable, and the people are trying desperately to dress it in clothes they can recognize. At every turn, you're faced with that clash of ordered bureaucracy and vast mystery. Everything supports this duality: the lighting, the use of color, the sound design. Just like Final Fantasy XV, it feels like anything can happen, and like your exploration will be rewarded with mind-bending visuals and unexpected surprises as you're lulled into a false sense of security by the familiar. It's masterful world design that results in one of the most strongly realized places in video games. The last place I want to talk about is the world of Horizon. What Horizon does is take a primitive natural world and punctuate it with the super high-tech. For story reasons, the world in Horizon is lush and nearly pristine, with the human population being at prehistoric levels of technological progress. You can enjoy the running rivers and green jungles and even small details like a line of leafcutter ants dutifully marching along a tree. The villages dotting the landscape are made up of hunter-gatherers whose lives revolve around survival, with few luxuries afforded, aside from the handmade crafts of their various cultures. And contrasting this familiar primal setting are the machines. Marvels of technology far more advanced than anything we have in reality, and incomprehensibly advanced to the people of the game world. The machines are biomimetic. Biomimicry is when technology adopts the forms found in nature to solve engineering problems. I find it poetic that as our machines become more advanced, they end up looking more and more organic. So often our biggest engineering problems have already been solved by evolution, and we need only look to nature to realize it. The game captures this poetry well, with the various machines even taking up residence in the habitats that their organic counterparts would be in. On the other hand, old human technology like skyscrapers and satellite dishes are now covered in flora, serving as the new bedrock for the ecosystem. And the main character, Aloy, acts as a bridge between these two worlds, having been gifted with knowledge of both. This dichotomy in Horizon is so elegantly done. When I crouch through the tall grass and wait for a hulking machine to pass by, when I climb a desert mountain to find robotic pterodactyls sunbathing their solar panel wings, when I'm diving through a lake and hide from a robotic plesiosaur swimming by, I can feel these two aesthetics rhyming with each other. They sing to each other and harmonize. Horizon's world is a duet. The designers of this game world have not only pushed together two opposing styles, they've woven them together, so that the resulting world you play in is grounded and bewildering, and yet cohesive. I'd like this design philosophy of aesthetic contrast to become more widely used in the game industry, and to be executed to these levels of quality, of course. When it's done right, it feels like alchemy to me, the resulting game being greater than the sum of its parts. Because of this alchemy, all three of these games have such unique worlds that demanded my attention more than almost any other games I've played. I hope you can see why. Thanks for watching.